Okay, we're finally recording. We had a little bit of a false start there, but I
Actually
think
just hit screen record on mine just in case something
yeah.
else happens. I'm like, not on my watch.
The
Hi!
official. Hey sis, hey sis. Now this is dope. Like we were just this has been a long time coming. Just with the conversations we've been having, just the natural how our phone conversations tend to shift into something more, having these, deep discussions, which I absolutely love.
Well, I am very excited. We are going to be doing our first podcast. This is the first time we're actually recording. And we finally got here. And so we're going to be talking about a couple of topics. Each of us have brought a topic in today. So we're going to just take turns. You're going to hit your topic up first, and then I'm going to hit on my topic. To start off, though, did you have an icebreaker?
Yeah. It's pretty much still the top of the year, first month of the year, 2026. And as people do with the new year, making goals. I was just gonna ask you, like, do you have any goals that you're gonna be focused on this year? Personal goals.
Yeah. Yeah, I do actually. So broadly speaking, um, so I think like when I hit 30, like I just had like this whole mindset shift.
Hmm.
And I've been like really hustling, just not like hustling in the terms of like work, but like really working on myself, working on my mental health, working on my physical health, working on my relationships, like really that personal development that you kind of forget about in your 20s because you're so busy trying to chase what people are telling you should want. And so right now I'm in the phase where I, as a people pleaser in recovery, part of what you have to learn to do is say no.
Right.
And I think I've done a pretty good job with that. And then another thing you have to do is kind of learn to ask for help. And that's something I haven't worked on as much. So this year is going to be a season of asking for help. And on that, in that train of thought, not just asking people for help, but also welcoming the help, even when I didn't necessarily ask for it. Sometimes I get a little like in my head, or sometimes I think I know better about a certain thing, and I might very well know a lot, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be open to input. So I'm trying to be more open to input, ask for help more, so I don't burn out so much, because I got a lot of life left. So want to enjoy
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And I think we talked about it on our false start, but you know, we're a lot alike. For me, I think one of my goals is just to take action more, right? Kind of get out of my own head, and just get started. Something that we talked about with starting this podcast is, when we start out, it doesn't have to be perfect. You sent me a really great video on that too.
Yeah.
Um, doesn't have to be perfect. Everyone starts somewhere. I've seen bunch of social media personalities, podcasters, YouTube folks. When you go back to like their really 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 early stuff, which is usually pretty buried, right? But
Yeah.
if any of them do have some of the really early stuff, you could tell the difference. And the thing is, like, you can see progression, um, but you have to start somewhere. And the only way you're gonna learn, the only way you're gonna get there, is just by doing. And that's what I want. I just want to start doing. I have a lot of ideas that I wind up talking myself out of. Um, so yeah, my goal this year is just to start doing more, and stop questioning myself, stop letting fear control me, and just do.
Yeah, I think our goals actually really line up, and I think that's why we're on this call right now, right? You taking action, and it's something that, don't get me wrong, I have to work on, and it's something that I'm trying to do. And I think oftentimes when I do get in my head and I'm not asking for help and I'm not welcoming the suggestions or ideas or criticisms, what happens is I'm on an island all by myself. And even when I'm ready to take action, I mean, there's only so much I can do, and I burn out. So yeah, I think that's why we're here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think sometimes it's easier to kind of do things when you have that support, right? Like us being here together, right? You know, we're both partners in this thing, but we're also each other's support in a way, right? You know, we're keeping each other accountable in a way, right? In multiple ways, really, right? You know, I don't want to let you down. You know, and but it's also kind of a way for me to not self sabotage. So I want to start with the first topic, and it was a video I sent you from Rob Markman. Rob Markman is a hip hop media personality. I guess you say journalist, podcaster. I've seen a lot of his videos. He's known in the hip hop space, and this video caught my eye. It's, do you care if rappers use AI to write lyrics? Um, you know, AI is everywhere now, right? It's just touching every part of every industry at this point.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
you know, if you haven't seen AI, then I'm not sure what you're doing. You're
Well, you're
somehow
not watching this podcast because
right.
you gotta go through a lot of AI just to see anybody with in real life. So
Absolutely, absolutely. But you know, the interesting thing as far as, you know, when it comes to music, and there's so many different ways we could go, but this one, like I said, regarding writing, um, involving hip hop, and there was this Chicago rapper that he spoke about named Baby Chief Dolts, which I'll be honest, I haven't heard of this guy. Haven't heard of this guy.
if you
Um,
haven't heard of him, I definitely haven't heard of him.
right. And I guess the question is, do we care? Um, I guess I'll start by saying for myself, um, I'm probably I don't know how old Rob Markman is. I believe we're probably close in age because a lot of what he was saying about the culture of hip hop and how we grew up, as far as if we found a rapper who didn't write their own lyrics, in many ways it was a knock on them, or
Oh
or
yeah.
or in um, and in some ways, like we would use different annotations, so like so someone could be a rapper if they don't write because they're just rapping the lyrics, but they're not considered an MC, which is elevated, right? Um,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
yeah,
I got
yeah,
him thrown.
right.
No,
But
we were
but
all
but
there when that happened.
yeah, but it's like a generational thing, right? So I've always kind of seen, you know, if someone doesn't write their own lyrics, um, you know, all right, sure, you know, I could still enjoy it, but I'm not looking at them the same way. This is beyond that, right? Because ghostwriting has been in hip hop for a
Sure.
long time. Like there's a lot of artists who have had ghostwriters, but now when you insert AI into it, it opens up a whole other can of worms. So now,
I
what are
think
your
so.
thoughts?
Well, I'll say on that note, like I think for me, I see that as two different conversations. I understand why they get talked about in the same space though. So for me, the idea of what an artist is supposed to be is I think different than the conversation of what the ethics are, let's say, behind using AI in art.
Right.
So, and I know you're more well versed on like the music and especially the hip hop side of it. But what I will say is when it comes to artists, I feel like people have always been selling their brand. Like since artists existed, since you could hear a person on the radio, there was a brand that they were selling, right? There was like a brand that Marilyn Monroe was selling. There was a brand that any artist, whether you were on screen, on radio, whether you were music, whether you were a painter, like there was something about you that people were buying into when they bought your music, when they bought your art, or when they saw your show. And so I think that when it comes to ghostwriters, I understand why that had become so taboo. But when we think about the engine that exists behind one artist today, I mean, we're talking about a team of people.
Right.
Yes, that person may very well be talented. That person may very well be a hard worker. They may be a visionary. They may be an entrepreneur. They may be all those things, but they don't exist in a vacuum. And so I think people can get very nitpicky with what kind of help and assistance that their artists, the artists that they like, are allowed to participate in. They're allowed to have to support their art. And where that comes into play with AI is that AI should become another tool that any artist would use, right? Maybe I think I'll stop there. I would say I think it becomes a tool that artists use, and it becomes yet another way for people to. I think they see the AI coming into play and they're like, okay, well, you're not the artist that I imagine you to be, because I imagine that you are this creative person, this visionary, this person who, when you write those lyrics, you're representing yourself, right? And we see that in comedy, right? When a person is on stage and they're telling a joke, people take their jokes very literally, or they take their jokes to be a representation of who they are as a person. And I think sometimes people forget that when you're an artist, you're putting out a product. And so I think that's part of the conversation, where AI is now stripping that artist of the identity that people were buying into in the first place. And then that becomes like this sort of betrayal to the consumer, to the listener, to the viewer.
Right. No, but I do like what you said about the artist's you use a different word, but like the artist's identity and image and portrayal.
The brand, right?
The brand.
Their
right?
personal brand.
And so for example, let's say one of the biggest artists in history, talking about one Michael Jackson. For those of you who may not know, like I think Michael is credited as a writer on a number of his own songs, but he had writers, right? I think for people that know, it's not a secret. One of his most collaborated writers is Rod Temperton. I believe he was in another R&B group called Heat Wave or something. I might be wrong, but Rod Temperton he's a great songwriter. He didn't only write for Michael Jackson; he wrote for other artists. But I think so. The other way that this kind of ties in is, Rod Temperton was able to have a career. He was able to like feed his family on his writing and getting residuals and stuff from the music, from his writing credits. And so fast forward, right? There are writers now, record labels may have their in-house writers. Obviously hip hop is different in a way, and I'll touch on that. For different genres, R&B and pop and stuff, they have their writers that they present the songs to certain artists, and they may accept it. They do the song. There's stories about songs that were written for certain artists that they rejected that goes to other artists as well. Um, but they get paid off of that. With AI, it may be a way to kind of skirt around um, the writers getting paid. Um, record labels. Um, a lot of people don't have trust in record labels, and feeling like they're gonna do whatever it takes to kind of avoid paying, like make the most money they
Hmm.
can, avoid paying, right? So you have artists making money, and where platforms like the streaming platforms, they're making less and less now these days. But now the writers maybe not getting as much writing work if AI becomes a more popular thing. Um, so that's kind of yeah.
Yeah. I
What are
think
your
that
thoughts?
I think the advent of every new technology pushes out labor, like every time. Like I don't think there's ever been, a technological advance that didn't push out some form of labor. And it always creates a new one. I think it never stops being scary though. What I'll say to that is, yeah, like people are going to circumvent, and more importantly, like institutions, right? Like the music industry, labels, they're going to circumvent using real people to do a job that was always done by real people.
Mm,
They're always going to find a way to do that. And if they can outsource it, they can outsource it. I can't, if I walk into another establishment and I have to check myself in on my own screen, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. I don't like the job was great. Every time I walked in, you said, hello, welcome. Let me check you in. Pop, pop, pop. Here you go. And now I have to do it myself. I don't get it. But
right.
yeah, like businesses are always going to do that. I think what AI is doing in terms of like musical artists is that it's giving them a shortcut, as if you're the musical artist themselves, right? So if you're the artist, you're trying to use it to write your song. I think that's very different than um maybe a writer that's being hired by a music label to write these songs for these many different people, and a person just using AI to write music for other people.
Mm,
Um, and they're being hired to pump out a certain amount. They're trying to hit a quota. I think it loses the sauce that really makes music and art so valuable. Um, at least in terms of the value in the culture. But
yes, and I just want to, because you touched on something really good, like you talking about the value of the art and the culture, right? And one thing that went to my mind is like when you have AI, right? AI is not a human as much as it's training on real people, right? It can't have the human emotion. It can't have the human experience, right? So it can't replicate that. So a lot of what we love in music is the human element and emotion that really good writers can put into their songs. And
right.
so that AI is not alive. It doesn't have an experience as someone who has lived a life or have gone through things that are common to most people, right? Um, relatable things. So
Yeah,
I
I
I
think
do wonder.
relatable is really the word, because when people are consuming art, what they're doing is finding connection through that music, through that piece that they're looking at that generates something inside of them. They're looking for the connection, and I think that's why they're so tied to the artist and their identity, because they're looking for a connection that didn't exist before they consume that piece of art. And so when you think, okay, but now it's a machine doing this, you lose that connection automatically. And it really does take the value of the art itself.
Right, and I think you know there's there's pop, right, pop music on the radio, right? And right now I'm talking about songs that are written by actual people too, right? But let's
Right.
compare formulaic pop song that was written to reach the most people, right? Something that's going to be catchy, something that has a earworm hook and stuff like that. But you listen to it, you're like, oh man, that's catchy, but it doesn't stick with you, right? And then think about someone who's like your favorite artist who has a song that you just really connect to, that just feeds your soul, like some that, you know, the lyrics just uh really really
They do something to you.
yeah,
They take you to another place. I'll
they
say,
take you to, yeah, they resonate. That's the word I was looking for.
right.
Lyrics that resonate, right? So that exists without AI. That exists without AI. And I think with AI, it's just going to be more of that, because what you can do with AI is like, you know, there's a lot of analytics with anything now. That's another thing that has become more permeated in society, is this idea of analytics and studying the analytics and seeing, you know, what is going to get us more views, what is going to get us more listens, what is going to get us more sales, right? Analytics. And so if you have the analytics of, okay, this type of hook, this type of melody on a song, um, this, you know, these notes, these vocals, is, and you know, now you just have a Frankenstein of a song that is meant to reach the most listeners. And sometimes when a song is trying to reach the most listeners, at the end of the day, um, is it really going to be memorable? Is it going to last the test of time? Because
Yeah.
if everything sounds the same, then what makes it stand out? What makes it stand out?
Yeah, it's surface level. And I think there's a use for it, right? Like, I think anybody would be lying if they said that pop songs had no use in the world, right? Like, a pop song is a song in the club that can bring all the people into the same moment, and everybody goes, hey, we all know that song, and we all know that earworm, and we can all sing it at the same time, and we all know the dance that goes with it, right? Like,
Right.
there's an image that we all share when we hear that song. It's designed to either get you happy or get you in the mood or whatever the thing is, right? So there's always like, there's some value to that, right? But there is a deeper experience that you can have with music, and you don't get it when you don't feel that resonance, that connection. And that connection and resonance, I think, in music comes from something being just slightly imperfect.
Mm.
And that imperfection comes from its like deviation from the norm, right?
Right.
So you have this formula that would design the perfect song, and then an artist who knows their shit. I mean, these are people who know music, they know the formula well, and then they choose how and where they deviate from it to give you that feeling of like, like there was something about that felt like it was saying something more than what I expected from it. Let me listen a little closer, right? Or let me look at that a little longer. Let me really think about it from this angle. And so, or let me reread that page, right? If we're talking about a novel. So yeah, there's a mastery that includes manipulating the formula to make it imperfect in a way that is interesting. And I think that that's what, at least currently with AI, we're still lacking, right? I can ask AI, and I do all the time, I can ask AI to write something up, and I can continue to prompt it and prompt it to hell until I either get something I'm really satisfied with, or I get something that really either is so close to what I want that now I know how to change it to make it what I want, or it's so not what I want that I know exactly what I want now, because it's not that, right? Like now I see, now I see where I need to go. And I think that's what makes it a tool. But I think consumers are not happy. Like listeners are not happy.
So going back to the story, right? Because I had a thought about this, right? I think this guy's name, Chief Baby Doe, the artist. So in the video, it says Chief Baby Doe mentioned he didn't not write the whole thing, right? He wrote maybe a couple bars, put it into AI, had it kind of analyze what he did. He probably did a lot of prompting to kind of fill out the rest of the song, right? Um, you know, I don't know. I don't know necessarily how I feel about that, but I do think someone who does that, and I'm sorry to place my judgment, but this is just how I feel. I feel like someone who does that is not really about the art. It's about the end goal. What's the end goal? Maybe making money from the music or putting it out there, getting the streams, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be your art, right? Because even if you're working with a songwriter or ghost writer, like let's say someone like Drake, right? He's been known to have ghostwriters, but he does have other music that he does write. Um, but from what I heard, he does have input when working with his ghostwriters. You know, it's not just all right. I made this song for you, and that's all that. So there is some input, and they are writing it with him in mind. Um, but yeah, if you're using AI for the whole thing, I can't really call you an artist at that point, because where's your art? And in that way, I think, just at least to wrap up my thoughts on it, in that way, I do think that there's always going to be a place for people who do put that human element to it, that do write their own, for people who do use their own vocals, because AI is being used for vocals now too, for people who produce there, because AI is using to make beats now too. So people that do it on their own, or use musicians and or use writers, there's always going to be a place for that, because when there's um, this once AI starts becoming more and more and more common, people that are going to start looking for the real thing, um, and the people that
I
are
think that I actually think that's very much the case. I do think that art is always going to be subjective, and I think the way people get there is also going to become a topic of discussion, and that may become subjective. Like, the people who consume it are ultimately the deciders of what is considered art. And if people are okay with AI art, then they get to be okay with AI art. And there may be something about AI art that they find interesting and different, and there's just something not quite right about it. And that's the thing that attracts them to it. I think that when it comes to the artist not being an artist, I don't know. I think that for me it's debatable. I think it's debatable because what is the artist doing if not curating an experience for you? And I
right.
think there is definitely a conversation to be had about how a person gets there, and would anybody else have gotten there besides that person, right? Like, you could put a million people in the room all with the same AI chatbot, and maybe some of them will come up with the same stuff, but a bunch of people are going to come up with something unique that nobody else would have been able to create using the same system, because the medium is one thing, but then the artist using the medium is a different thing. And I think that
That's
people treat
that's
AI
a
as
good
a thing
point.
that you just say, I want people to hear something that sounds like this, and then they create a product, and then that's the end of the conversation. But I think there are artists that they're doing a lot more than that. And so I think ultimately it becomes the job of policy to make sure that people aren't getting screwed over, and people are getting their payment. But I mean, we're becoming a society where we're like less and less using people in our life. And when I say using people, I mean like being in community with people. I mean, you say like we're not using other people to create music, but I'm not using other people to make my dinner. I'm not
Yeah,
using other
right.
people to have a party at my house half the time, right? Like, people are like Okay, all I need is a bottle and a piece of pie and my series, and I'm gonna binge it, and that's a party, right? People are really opting out of social interactions, and I think based on what you're saying is true. People are going to look for the thing that is more real, and I think the spaces outside of the internet are going to become popular again. That's my unpopular opinion. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
which is why I don't think AI is going to disappear. AI is still going to exist where it exists. But when you don't want to see some shit that's AI, you're going to go in person and you're going to watch somebody singing in real life. Or you're going to go to a jam session and create your own music. You weren't even an artist, but now suddenly jam sessions are the new, poetry jams or whatever. And now everybody in the audience is involved in creating something unique because it's not AI because you were involved. I think
yeah.
interesting things are going to happen.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. And I think there's going to be people utilizing, and there already are people utilizing AI for in different ways. So using it as a tool, maybe, you have a little bit of writer's block. You're trying to find just the right line of word, and you prompt AI, hey, what's another way to say this? Okay, cool, you got past it. You may write 90% of that whole song and that 10%. And that's clearly a different thing. But people will have their own opinions on it. But
Always.
it's
Oh,
clearly
I mean,
different.
I think my opinion is pretty unpopular. If I'm being honest, I think your opinion is the more popular opinion, which is like, oh, you didn't write it, you're trash.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to definitely when it comes to hip hop, just because hip hop being the culture that
Mm,
it was, started off as a culture, having the different elements, and I think when you have a genre of music tied so much to the culture, the people that remember the culture are going to hold on to it. And I think what's
sure.
happening now is that hip hop started in the 1970s, 1973, or and so when you have you get so far away from the start. You got people that are participating in the music genre that have no connection to the culture. They're gonna say
Mm,
we don't need to follow these rules at all. Like
sure.
we don't. So then now all the forefathers. I know that sounds crazy using the term forefathers or OGs, or if you say, they're like, hey, this is what it is, and they're like, well, respectfully, um, you know, we're not listening to you. We're going to do it our own
Right.
way, and sometimes without the respectful part, they're like,
Sure.
yo, respectfully, f off. I'm doing my own thing. So
Fair enough.
yeah, that's that. Like I said, hip.
And I think like hip hop is like while its roots run really deep, it's relatively new, right?
Yeah, it
Like
is.
we're talking about the 70s, like that was yesterday. And so it's when we're talking about people like remembering like what these the people who started it are alive and well, right? Like the people who started this
Yeah, like
movement,
hip hop 50. Yeah, hip hop 50 just happened. Like hip hop 50 was big
right?
thing. It was on all the award shows and stuff. But when you think about only it's only 50 years old, right? Like it's
Yeah,
crazy. Like, you think about the pioneers. There are a lot of pioneers that are still alive, you
right.
know. Um, so it's
Um,
crazy. It's crazy.
but yeah, so I just wanted to explain why I have two versions of the Puerto Rican flag behind me. Our grandparents did move here when they were younger. And when, at least for me, I grew up in New York and my parents did not speak to me in Spanish, right? They spoke to each other in Spanish as a way to communicate how they felt
Yeah.
to each other about each other. Um, So it was really in the language that I learned to tune out, actually. And so I didn't have that. My grandparents, for the most part, spoke Spanish. I did have grandparents that spoke English, but I was also like the youngest out of everybody, and I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with the family. And so for the larger part of my life, while I've known that I am Puerto Rican, and I had been to Puerto Rico when I was younger, um, I didn't really have a deep connection with my roots in Puerto Rico. So I think, you know, when you reach a certain age and I think there are certain like checkpoints that you have in life, right? Like everybody goes through some very similar transitions. And so one of them is when you're a teenager, like you're trying to separate yourself from your parents and your family. You're trying to find how you are different and you are your own person. And it's a tumult. it's it's a horrifying time. You poor teenagers out there, I do not envy you. And my early 20s were no better. They were even rougher, I think, because then I had to do that, but all by myself, like I asked for.
Yeah.
And then, I hit my 30s and I started really looking for like where I fit in again in this weird way, but not with people that I didn't know, with my family, right? With my ancestors. I wanted to get to know where I come from and what made me, what made my family, what made my culture that I come from, the history of it all. And so recently, I've been trying to get back in touch with my Puerto Rican roots. And so we, so how do you feel about that? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, no, I think I agree a lot of what you're saying as far as like you growing up, you're trying to find yourself. I was the same. Mom and dad didn't really speak to me in Spanish. It was more of Spanglish. So whatever I picked up was more Spanglish. There's another element that I often talk about when people ask me, well, how come you didn't learn Spanish? Well, you took Spanish in school and this and that. Um, I want to explain something. I'm not sure if anyone else can relate to this experience, but in high school or even in middle school as well, um, when you're trying to learn Spanish, when you're Puerto Rican, you're trying to learn Spanish, you're trying to talk to your friends that know Spanish, they're not trying to help you really. Like they're trying to clown on you. You know what I'm saying? Like at least that's my experience. Now, you can have your white friend, you can have your black friend, Asian friend. They're trying to learn Spanish. They'll be super helpful. They think it's cute. Oh, you're trying to learn. Okay, let me help you pronounce it. Oh, this is the word to say that. They love it. They think it's cute. What they don't think is cute is you're Puerto Rican and you don't know Spanish. Get out of here, man. Get out of here with that. So that was also my experience. And is I have this thing where I I probably understand a little bit more than what I can actually speak or what I feel comfortable speaking. Um, so it's this whole thing. Um, but yeah, beyond
Yeah,
that, oh no,
I
you
was
could go
gonna
ahead.
say, like, I feel like you having a similar experience to me, where I feel like there's something unique about the Puerto Rican who doesn't speak Spanish in New York. There's something unique about that experience, that, at least for me, and I don't know if other people feel this way. I don't know if you feel this way, but like it's hard to learn Spanish, and it's hard to learn any language. Granted, I haven't met anyone who said it's easy, but there's something like it's something emotional about it. Like there's something that feels like I was already supposed to know this. I have failed by not knowing it. And when I'm trying to talk to the people who I want to talk to in the first place, the reason I'm trying to learn the language, I feel like I'm doing them a disservice or something. And even the nicest people in the world eventually are just going to be like, oh, girl, can I just talk to you in Spanish, like in English? Like, I just
Yeah,
can't. Like, we're never going to get anywhere with this conversation. And
Yeah.
finding people who are willing, the people that I found that are willing to talk to me in Spanish are the people who are learning English. So while they're
Mm.
trying to learn English, I can speak to them in English. They'll talk to me in Spanish, and then we'll try to switch up once in a while. But those are the people that I learn the most from, not the people who speak Spanish because they also speak English and they're not trying to hear it, or the people in my life will just start translating for me. And
And here's the other thing too is one thing I've learned fairly recently um, is Puerto Rican Spanish is different than the Spanish that we were being taught in school. It's different. Like the
very
pronunciation,
much.
like saying, Puerto Rico, like it's Puerto Rico, right? It's with an L, right? Um, Other Spanish speakers they roll the R. Like they were trying to teach us to roll the R's like in Spanish class.
I didn't even think about that,
And
honestly. Like, I
one
suck at
thing,
it.
one thing, right? But one thing I realize is like, no, it's because it's not natural for us. It's not
It
natural for us.
isn't.
Listen to mom talk. Like it's the Puerto Rican even dad, right? But it's Puerto Rican Spanish. It's a specific Puerto Rican accent with speaking
Yeah.
Spanish, right? We weren't learning that, right? So that was another thing where I thought I sounded dumb trying to speak the proper Spanish that I was learning to a Puerto Rican Spanish speaker, and there
Mm-hmm.
was this disconnect. And now I realize why. Like it wasn't sounding natural, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
that's another element. But yeah, there's another element of this that I want to share, which we both share, which is we're both in multicultural marriages. So I'm not
Yeah.
married to a Puerto Rican. You're not married to a Puerto Rican. Um, Both of our spouses are black. So
Mm-hmm.
we're both in multicultural relationships. So we're not going to learn it from our spouses. That's for sure, right?
No,
Um,
no. But you know what? I will say I am so beyond like annoyed because I guess my husband does not have the same hang up with Spanish that I do. So he'll learn and catch things much more quickly than I will. And like I'll be like, "Oh yeah, how do you say this?" And he'll say it in Spanish and I'm like, "No, no. Absolutely not. No, you don't get to learn faster. Go to your corner because you're
no, it's a
not going to out
freedom.
Spanish me right
Yeah,
now."
it's a freedom. Like I'm super conscious of how I
Mhm.
perceive what I sound like speaking it.
Yeah.
Um, just knowing I'm like, yo, I'm Puerto Rican, like, and I should like people are expecting me to know this. Now,
Yeah.
once we get into the topic, like, I've actually been seeing some people fight back on this, right? Of fight back on the Spanish, saying, "Yo, I don't want to hear y'all talking about, why are you Puerto Rican and don't speak Spanish? Like Spanish was the colonizer language." And I was like, "Oh shit."
I mean, listen, listen. Um, what else we gonna speak? Like, listen,
No,
the
for real, for real.
Tainos
I
were
mean,
wiped out. Like, there's still a community that represent Tainos in Puerto Rico, and they're a pretty small community from what I've seen. I haven't done a lot of research, so I don't want to talk on my ass, but
right.
a lot of them are Puerto Ricans, right? Like these are not like Taino 100% by blood because they were decimated, right?
No, for
So
sure.
it's a situation in which if there were survivors, they they had mixed race children, right? We
Yeah.
had African slaves who were brought to the island. We had the colonizers that came to the island. We had like it was a mixture of everybody, and that's why our culture is so rich. But a lot of the culture that we have, we're holding on so tightly to because like
No,
you're
no, no
not taking
doubt, no
anymore.
doubt.
You don't get to take anymore. Like so, it's really all we have. I mean, I get it, but what's the Taino language? What were they?
Yeah, no,
What
no,
were
I'm
they?
saying, I'm not saying,
What were they
yeah,
speaking? Borinquen?
I'm not saying that we should. No, I'm not saying that we should speak it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that we should speak that language. However, I'm saying that there should be some grace. You know, you have
Sure.
the police, you know, the policers like, oh, if you don't speak Spanish, you're not a real Puerto Rican, right? And I guess that is the answer for that. Like technically, this is a colonizer language, right? Technically, English is also a colonizer language, right? So we're fighting between two colonizer languages. Like, what are we
And we're just
really?
talking about we're just talking about languages. Let's not even get into religion, right?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Exactly, exactly. But you know, one thing with the video you sent, um, and I definitely took notes. It's just the way from the beginning, like from the United States colonizing of Puerto Rico, right? And even before United States was involved, like I think Spain
Mm-hmm.
arrived there first and did their thing, but systematically set up for failure, right? Systematically only set up to benefit the colonizing countries, right? You know, Spanish came, they got what they came for. Boom. All right, cool. United States, you know, yeah, I want this. You could have it. But you
They
know,
still getting what they came for. They still getting the most out
any
of us.
no doubt, like any you know rich products, like you're talking about, like the coffee industry, the sugar industry, completely decimated. All the profits, you know, went to the United States. Like, and what's crazy is, you know, I was thinking, I was just in Williamsburg when we went to New York for, you know, Mama's funeral. I was just in Williamsburg. Williamsburg has um, a huge domino building, and I'm not sure if it's still being used as their headquarters or not, or it's just a landmark at this point. The huge domino building, you know, you know, by the water, whatnot. You know, it's a nice landmark, but I can't see that the same way anymore.
Yeah.
Now seeing like how what their involvement was, you know, and how they profited off of, you know, Puerto Ricans. It's crazy, right? You know, the coffee, how, you know, the tariffs, how the you know, all the laws, the Jones Act, um, all of that just killed the industry. Like Puerto Ricans pay double what anyone pays for anything, groceries, products, anything in the States. And it makes
Yep.
no sense. It makes absolutely no sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think like it's really sad. I had a really I had a hard time. So the video you're talking about is called um I think this one was called Puerto Rico is dying.
Yes.
And here's why, right?
Yep.
When we edit, we'll put it down here. But this video, and actually its predecessor, which I have to watch, it's the US version, the US islands are dying, and that one talks about Hawaii as well. So this video really does paint a story of just how Puerto Rico went from what it directly translates to the port of riches, right?
Yeah.
And it is now like the poorest place you can find, you know, of US territory, or one of them, because the people are doing all this work and generating all of this export, and they are not making the money. They are being pushed out. people talk about Puerto Rico like it's this paradise where you don't pay any taxes. And guess what that means? Because that's only available to the people who move there. That's not available to the locals. So the locals are paying taxes, but the people who come there are not. And then their cities are not being taken care of. And so, and then they're literally like we live in a world where we talk about this country was literally founded on this idea of no taxation without representation, but that's literally what Puerto Rico is. Like Puerto Rico is literally a place where you can get drafted, but your vote doesn't count. You can vote on whether or not you want to be independent nation or whether or not you want to be a state. You can vote till your heart is all dried out, but we don't actually have to listen to the vote.
Yeah, and I think now that I know everything, from this video, and I'm not saying I know everything, right? I'm sure there's still more.
Yeah. What we learned, right? Like,
but the video dives pretty deep into the history and the step by step dismantling of everything that made Puerto Rican great. Even at some point after the sugar and coffee profits dried up and came the Industrial Revolution, even that got pimped out for U.S. profits, and but
and that's not even talking about the massacres that occurred, right? Like we're just talking about financially and policy wise how they've been decimated. We're not even talking about the horrors, the atrocities, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you're talking about this vote, right, between statehood, independence, and continue being a commonwealth, there doesn't seem to be a consensus, because for a lot of them, like, they're already in such a bad place, right? And so it's like, all right, if we become independent, can we even support ourselves, right? If they become a state, what will change, right? Because we're not going to talk about Hawaii, but you said there was a video about Hawaii and other places. Like, Hawaii's not doing so great, maybe better than Puerto Rico, but there's issues with Hawaii
no,
well.
I don't know about that, brother. Like, they are paying crazy prices over there, crazy prices, and a lot of Hawaiians are not Hawaiian. A lot of the people in Hawaii are not even Hawaiian.
No, for sure.
They're not native.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like if statehood for Puerto Rico looks like Hawaii, I could see why a lot of them like, no, we already see what that's about. We don't want that. But being in this state of limbo, where there continue to be a commonwealth, but they're not getting the support. I mean, we had that hurricane. I know everyone knows, like, so many viral moments, especially with Trump just throwing the freaking paper towels, finally got FEMA support only for United States, specifically Trump, to call for FEMA to get out of there prematurely. That's just unprecedented. Like, for disasters in countries like that, FEMA usually stays for at least a year.
It was disgusting.
Or more.
It was like
completely disgusting.
A gross move. Like, I mean, so many people died. So, and I think one of the most shocking things that I saw in that video was just learning just how the population has changed in Puerto Rico. Like, it's really, when the name of the video is I think aptly named, because the people are dying. Like, let's really talk about it. It's the people. But this has never, like, US never cared about the people. They were like, oh, here's an island that we can loot, that we can use to our advantage, that we can use for wars because of how well positioned it is, that we can use as our own personal paradise. We can take advantage of these people. They're like, that's as close to slavery as you're going to get these days, right? Like, that's what it looks like today. These are people who literally cannot vote in the U.S. election, but are subject to all of the laws that the president can make. Or in this administration, you don't even have to make a law. You don't have to do due
Absolutely.
process.
And the other thing that really stuck out, because I think something that happened, like when we first kind of discussed this, you shared this video, I saw it um, before what happened with Venezuela, right?
Right.
And
It
so
happened just after we watched this video.
and so knowing all of this, seeing what's going on in Venezuela, I can kind of see very much a repeat, because what are they looking at? Like, obviously looking at the natural resources, oil being one of them. I'm sure any other exports that they could get from them. Um, this is what colonizers do. They strip lands of all their resources, right? Convince them, you'll be better under our regime.
Yeah.
Under what cost? Under what cost? Because before this, what, like, weren't Americans not American, but immigrants in America being deported to Venezuela at one point, I thought. Or am I confusing Venezuela with another country?
I don't know if it was that country, but I do remember people getting deported to places that wasn't where they were from.
Right.
Just craziness. I will say, like, but so to bring it back, because once again, I mean, our first topics for our first episode are definitely things that we are actively working with, right? Like, we're really going through our own personal journeys, and these are topics that we're very interested in. So I have a feeling these are going to be maybe reoccurring segments going forward, maybe updates as we go. But one of the things I did want to touch on is just how, at least in my life, I'm trying to kind of bring some of that culture into my life. So, as you said, our grandmother on our mother's side passed almost a year ago, about half a year ago. Yeah, this last summer.
Yeah, half a year ago. Yeah,
about half a year ago. And so we all got together, and we were there at the funeral, and then we had a repast. And it was kind of like one of those situations in which, like, a bad situation, a very small and very hot venue, kind of something from it came something good, which was like we all kind of felt like we were at Mama's house back in the day in her small little apartment where we would all pack in. She never had the AC on. And so it kind of just felt like we were back there. And I think it did something for me, at least. And I wanted to hold on to at least the memories that I had as a child. And one of those memories was celebrating Three Kings Day, or Dia de Reyes. And so this past holiday season, I called my mom and dad, and I was like, guys, unfortunately, I had gotten injured. And so I had time off, but I wasn't feeling well enough to travel. And so I was like, hey, listen, I was ready to buy a ticket, but I definitely can't travel yet. So what if you take that ticket money and you guys come down? And so they came down, and I convinced Edwin. When I say I had to fight Mom, I had to fight her, because I said I wanted to make pasteles. We've never made pasteles, okay? I've wanted to make pasteles since I was younger. Now, before Mama had passed, I had actually already spoken to my mom and my sister about it. I was like, I wanted to do me, Marilyn, Mom, and Mama in the room. And men were welcome, but that was my vision. I was like, I need those 4 women in the room, right? And ideally, we could have gotten even more, but I wanted to have that experience of making the pasteles with my grandmother and my mom and having those generations in the room. And So when my mom came down, I was like, okay, January 6th is Three Kings Day. My mom is a devout Catholic, okay? She's in the church. So this is a Catholic holiday, and it's something that's really celebrated by many Hispanic cultures, Puerto Rico being one of the cultures that celebrates it in a really big way. And I know when we were younger, we would go to grandmama's house and she would celebrate Three Kings Day,
Yep.
right? She would do the rosary. We would have a whole event. And that was after we had just been in the house for the day before Christmas, Christmas Eve. And so I wanted to try to recreate that because we hadn't done it in years. So I convinced my mom. We made the pasteles. I have a video. I gotta send it to you. And that was really fun. We had a whole like assembly line, and then we celebrated here. So I invited as many of the family members as I could from New York that would fit in my little apartment. And we had them. We played instruments. My mom set an altar, which you can kind of see back there. Not an altar, but like the nativity back there. We did like a parranda, and it was just a good time. And so that's right here. What you'll see is the flag, and then you'll see Three Kings
Three Kings.
on their camels. And then on the topic of my husband, who is Black, his sister is half Puerto Rican. Her father was Puerto Rican. So, but she hasn't had access to her Puerto Rican side of the family as much as she would like. And so when I was doing this, I like made it a point. I was like, okay, sis, you got to come. You got to experience your people. You got family out here in New York. So we're going to celebrate. And so she was so excited. She brought that flag to the house,
Nice.
which is the size of one of my windows. And so we hung it up right away. She was like, leave it here. I want to hear for next time. So now I just got two big Puerto Rican flags in the house.
Love it. Love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah. But the thing with the pastel is like, I don't even know who was making it. Was mama make? All I know is, we have plugs, right? Same with the coquito. I remember asking our cousin Adam,
he was the coquito guy. He was the guy.
I remember asking because I talked to Christina, who's Adam's sister, and I asked her. She's like, "Nah, Adam is who you want to talk to. Reach out to Adam, ask him. He just ghosted me." I'm like, "All right, I see how it is."
You hear that, Adam? We calling you out, bro. We calling you out, cuz.
I get it. Like, it's just sometimes it's, the family secrets, don't want to let it go. Like, I mean, I thought I was proven trustworthy, but cool, right? I mean, because you could find 100 recipes for coquito online, but it ain't gonna be the same as a family recipe. It's not. It's not gonna be the same.
It's not. And I will say, though, I commissioned my husband to make it this time, and he did do a pretty good job with an online recipe. Although I don't think it was the first time he's made it, but he went hard, and it was pretty good.
Speaking of which, did you see those videos I was sending you about? I think Wendy's had their own version of coquito in Puerto Rico, and there was a couple other places. They're basically, oh man, they're doing it dirty, man.
That's disrespectful. I don't know. There's just something so disrespectful. Like, okay, we just spoke about how profits have been stolen from Puerto Ricans. Yeah. And now the one little side hustle that the Puerto Ricans got, y'all want to take? I'm not buying your shit. Although I will admit that Bacardi's coquito is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Bacardi has a coquito. It's pretty good. Like on the fly, if you want to grab, it's a Puerto Rican company at least. But man, it's not the same.
Although, like straight up coquito, but they're making like coquito milkshakes and stuff like that. Like they're just,
Oh my gosh. Oh, please no. Just pour water in the coquito. If that's what you're going to, just pour water in it. Because that's what you're doing. You're watering it down. It's disgusting. Don't do it. Don't do it.
For yeah, for
Um,
real, man.
but yeah, so
It's definitely crazy.
that's my goal. But I think that's all I have for my topic. I think, like I said, I think these probably will be reoccurring. I'll definitely jot more notes down next time.
No doubt, no doubt. And man, I just had an idea too, but we definitely, on the Puerto Rican topic, we definitely got to reconvene after the Super Bowl because Bad Bunny Super Bowl. Um,
The
you
way
already know,
I'm telling you, that's it. Listen, I have a Spanish minor because I just graduated this past year. I have a Spanish minor. Who I thought I was doing that? I don't know. I don't know who I thought I was. I don't know who convinced me that I could do that shit. I don't know a lick of Spanish. I mean, I know Spanish. I can recognize a lot. I'm more a book nerd, so I'm a good student, and I can like learn what I need to learn for the test and get the thing
right?
done. But when especially a language, when I say that shit went in one ear out the other, I don't remember nothing. So when I start learning my language again, it is purely going to be for the purpose of learning Bad Bunny lyrics, so I could be going hard during the Super Bowl. I can't wait.
Yes. Yeah.
Back to first of all, what a follow up to Kendrick. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. And I just love the lead up and the story behind it, right? So for those who don't know, um, um, Bad Bunny had a residency in Puerto Rico to benefit the island. Why? Just listen to the topic we were just discussing. That's why, right? So he did it for the benefit of the item. The whole album that he's been promoting is an album that speaks on Puerto Rico and what has become of it, right? Very very cultural album, and so he was doing this whole residency. He said he wasn't going to do any tour dates in the United States, especially after the ICE raids. Um, he was
Mm-hmm.
very concerned about his fans, showing up and possibly getting deported, right? And before you say, "Oh, but Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens," Bad Bunny has more fans than just Puerto Ricans. Like, let's be
Yeah, I
honest,
wasn't
right?
gonna say that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna be
No,
me.
no,
Yeah,
I
like
wasn't talking
first of all,
about you.
like Bad
Yeah,
Bunny is international. Like he's not a Puerto Rican pop star. Like this man is
no, for
global.
sure,
So
global. Yeah.
yeah, like he has
So,
fans
so, so,
everywhere. And I think people forget that when you come from a place that has been colonized, you understand what that looks like. You get that struggle. And the reality is that people getting deported, people being stolen from their land, people, not getting the same rights as the people around them. That's a story that Puerto Ricans understand, and I think he understands that. And no matter what, like he wants his
no,
fans to be safe. Like that's just the reality, and he's not playing no game. So I respect him
no
for it.
doubt. So the Super Bowl, no doubt. So the Super Bowl is going to be the one U.S. tour date. That was the whole thing, right? You know, he wasn't going to do any, but it's bigger than it's bigger than the tour. It's bigger than it's a statement, and so I'm definitely excited for it. I think it's really going to put a lot of spotlight on Puerto Rico, what's been going on, and I think just what's going on with Latinos and Hispanics in general. We'll see, but I'm definitely really excited. So we definitely got to link up and reconvene after that, and share our thoughts about it all because it's definitely a level of pride there. But man, I'm super excited.
Same. I am. I'm excited. We did our first podcast. But yes,
Yeah,
this was great. Let's close out. Got any last words?
last words. No, I think like that once again excited about this. It's something as we started off with. This is something that is aligning with our goals for this year, and so I think it's something that it's not going to be a growth in the podcast. It's going to be a growth in us that
Yeah.
we're see. So definitely excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this takes us. I think it's gonna keep growing, keep evolving. Probably look a whole lot different than what it does now. And I'm happy to get to know you. Like it
Absolutely.
really is. It's nice. Like I don't get to see you in person a lot. So like these conversations are really valuable to me. And I get a whole new history, a whole new outlook, a whole new perspective. So it's gonna be
Me
fun.
too.
I'm excited. We did our first podcast.
Yeah. If y'all are hopping on this journey early, you're gonna see our progression. You're gonna see us grow. You're gonna see this thing blow up. So I'm speaking it right now. We're gonna see it blow up. Turtle
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.